Welcome to the Sum of Everything podcast, where we discuss a little bit of a lot of topics, ranging from spirituality to finance and everything in between. I'm your host, Aishwarya, a serial hobbyist with an unquenchable thirst for learning, especially through new experiences. In this podcast, we will scratch every itch of curiosity, explore various perspectives, step out of our comfort zone, and experience some of everything. Because after all, we are just that, a sum of all our experiences. So, let's dive right in. Welcome to the very first episode of the Sum of Everything podcast. I am so excited to finally hit record on this one because I have been prepping and planning and stuck in analysis paralysis over this one for so long that it's quite a shocker to me that I'm actually here recording this today. An additional motivation here is that if all of this goes right, then this episode will be launched on my birthday. And what better day to put your own creative baby out into the universe? This is not just any birthday, mind you, it's a milestone, and I'm finally bidding goodbye to the tumultuous 20s. And I can only think of how much has changed and will obviously continue to change in my life. I've been thinking about this a lot, as one does when facing a milestone, about the lessons that I have learned thus far. And I thought that the only right way to start my first episode or start this journey is that this first episode be about the biggest and most important lesson that I have learned thus far, which is getting comfortable with change. So a few days ago, I had an epiphany, which was prompted by a conversation that I was having with my father about his friend. My father told me about a school friend of his who had grown up with him in circumstances that were substantially similar to his own. And he eventually moved from the western part of the country to the eastern part of the country to learn the tea trade. And his father himself was a humble tea salesperson, but nowhere close to being a big businessman. This man who traveled from the west to the east in an unreserved train compartments has, over the course of the last 35 years, built himself a business from scratch and now owns Mercedes cars. He didn't do this by going to a fancy college or getting a degree or by being handed down any kind of privilege whatsoever. He did it simply because he had the fire to learn and to make something of himself. He just worked his butt off, learned on the job, and did whatever he could in the industry to become the person that he is today. And this got me thinking about my own father, who also worked tirelessly to extricate himself from his extremely humble beginnings and bring us almost single-handedly into the comforts that we have today. Then I thought about myself and others in my age group with similar financial backgrounds and realized that none of us have probably worked as hard as our parents did at our age, and how we probably take a lot for granted because of the privilege that we were born into. And this is what led me to the epiphany that I had, which I am going to share today. And just to be very clear, these are my own personal views, and you are under no obligation to share them with me. In fact, if you do disagree and have your own views, I would be more than happy to hear them. So do let me know either as comments or on DM. So here goes. Now, I believe that there are three kinds of people: the haves, the have-nots, and the have just enoughs. Who are these three? Well, the haves is kind of obvious, isn't it? These are people who are born into privilege, luxury. They never have to go without. They have never been told that they can't get something. Whatever they want, they get on a platter nearly. They go to the best of schools, the best of colleges, and they've never really gone without materially. They've never needed anything to survive. They've always had more than enough. And when you put it in context, when you have the backing of mm, material comforts, then you have your basic needs taken care of. And when you do that, you're more open to be able to dream more, or look forward to greater things, achieve more. Also, these are the people, because they have that comfort, they have that cushioning, they can set their sights higher. They've never been told that they can't achieve something. That mindset doesn't exist in them. And just because of that, they usually have the confidence of a go getter and tend to achieve greater things just because they've never been told no. The have nots are at the other end of the spectrum. They have nothing or nearly nothing. They have to fight for their survival, they have to fight for their next meal. To make something of their lives, they have to put in everything. Nothing comes easy to them, and because they're in a position where nobody is holding the even necessities for them on a platter, they have the mindset of, I have to fight to get everything. And when you're in a mentality that is basically a fighter mentality, that basically says, I cannot rest, I just have to go, 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 you already have a lot of momentum. When you have that kind of momentum, it's very difficult to stop. And then you don't want to stop because you know that the more you work, the more you will get. And the more you get, the better you can make your life. And so they're always on the go. They're always working. They're always on a quest to find the next thing for their life and to make their job, to make their life better. And for them, one of the most significant things that can happen to them in their lives is a comfortable, stable job with a regular paycheck, a decent roof over their heads. That's a major jump for them in life. And when they've come that far, then nothing stops them from setting their sights even higher because they're ready to risk it all. They can. Because it can't get worse. They can only get better. And finally, it is the have-nots. The have-nots are the people who are stuck in between. These are the people who are born into just enough privilege, just enough luxury to never want anything materially, and always be in a position that if they really need something, they might probably have to wait a little until they can save up enough to get it. They have just enough luxury to keep them going, but never too much to be super comfortable. They have just enough privilege where they're never left wanting or needing for anything, but not quite that much where they think that they're set for life and they have a very cushiony landing even in case they fall. And because what they risk has that much more value to them, they choose not to risk. They're okay where they are. These are people like me, the middle class. Steady job, steady paycheck. I work for the money that I earn. I get enough where I can feed myself, clothe myself, house myself, and even enjoy myself. This puts me in a position of disadvantage because neither do I have the look forward only mindset where I can be like, the world be damned, I'm going to go and achieve what I want. Nor do I have the mindset of, oh my God, my house is on fire and therefore I absolutely need to achieve the next thing so I can survive. I'm in the middle. I'm comfortable. It's just enough for me to not want to move. And when you look at it from the context of the other two classes as well, the haves probably don't want people like me joining their ranks because, well, it puts the limited resources that they have in jeopardy. They want to be elite. They want to be exclusive. And when it comes to the have-nots, they probably think that I already have enough resources, and resources being limited, they think that they probably deserve a larger share of what is available because they don't have, and I do have whatever little bit I have. And in this middle ground is that sweet spot of comfort, and comfort, my friends, is a dangerous word. If you haven't been catching my drift so far, let me give you an analogy. Imagine yourself in bed, cozy, wrapped up in your favorite blanket, and you're just about to watch your favorite movie or a TV show. It's cold outside, and you're just so warm in that blanket, so comfortable. And suddenly you realize you have to pee. Well, if you're not going to make yourself uncomfortable and get out of bed, you're not going to be able to pee. And if you don't pee, then you're probably going to rot there and, get seriously unwell. You're not even going to enjoy the experience as much because it's the need to pee is just going to get stronger and stronger. And at one point, either you're going to wet the bed or you're going to begrudgingly, but still have to rush out of bed. So what does that tell us? Well, you have to get out of bed and make yourself momentarily uncomfortable so that you can enjoy the rest of the movie watching experience. Think about it. If you had just taken a few minutes out, gotten out of bed, done your business, come back, you could have been able to enjoy the movie a lot more comfortably, probably from start to finish, without any interruptions. But because you didn't do it, well, you just have to face the consequences because it's just going to get worse until you make yourself uncomfortable. This was the realization that actually made me record this episode. I had thought of the idea of this podcast nearly a year ago, and I had been prodded by a couple of other people in my life to start one as well. It took me just a few hours, probably even less than 2, to come up with a list of topics that I could make episodes on, and a few more weeks to come up with a good enough name that I was happy with. And then months and months before I actually started any real work on it. Because I was just scared. I was scared for so many reasons. And maybe I will go into that another time. But most importantly, I was uncomfortable with having to change my routine and put in extra effort into deciding the topic to speak on, making some notes, and then actually setting up the recording equipment, sitting down and pressing record. Because it meant that I had to disrupt my routine and get out of my comfort zone. And I just was not ready to do that yet. I kept lamenting that I hadn't done anything on this front for months, despite my obvious potential for it. But the solution was simple. Everything was available to me. I just had to get out of my cozy bed, make myself uncomfortable to make any progress whatsoever. The day I decided that I would do it is the day I actually made the outline for this podcast. Now, I had a lot of friends helping me. That support is welcome and sometimes absolutely necessary. In my case, definitely it was. But the final action had to come from me. And when it did, that's when the wheels finally started moving. So maybe identify what potential you've been sitting on in your life because you are too comfortable. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's time for a change. Or maybe you've been meaning to move out but haven't because, well, where you're at isn't so bad. Or maybe, like me, you have been wanting to start a creative project but haven't been able to find the time because subconsciously you just don't want to change your routine. You don't want to get uncomfortable because change is uncomfortable. Change is not easy. And let's take a moment to acknowledge that it's hard. It's hard to be in a position where you have to put yourself out there into the unknown and just trust that things will come to you or things will be okay. And more often than not, they're probably not going to be okay. Your subconscious is probably just trying to save you the heartbreak and the pain that comes from failing. And that is okay. It is what the subconscious does. That's its job. But unless we train it to say, you know what, I'm okay, I will deal with the discomfort, I will deal with the pain that comes with failure because I have to do something with my life. I have to move on. I have to get that promotion. I have to quit this job and start that new one. I have to start prep for that competitive exam that I want to write. I have to start dancing again. I want to start singing again and put out content. Unless we tell ourselves that over and over again and actually steel ourselves to make that change, nothing's going to happen. So, identify that change. Identify what it is that is holding you back. Get uncomfortable. Make that change. Start. Who knows where it will get you? Well, that's it for the first episode. I hope that what I said today is inspirational. Even if it isn't right now, maybe another time, maybe in another place. And until then, I hope you can store it away and I hope it finds you when you actually need it. Thank you all for listening to the very first episode of my ambitious venture. I really appreciate the support and I hope to see you all again next time. Bye bye.